To make this brief, I, male 23, had issues with my dad after my mom died and my stepmom came along. I hated a lot of decisions that were made, but what left a long-lasting impact was taking my college fund to pay for my stepbrother's surgeries. Unfortunately, he's dead. He died last year from a chronic heart problem. So I put my distance, but I still see my grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, etc. With the holiday season coming up, Dad started talking to me through some relatives, close relatives. He went on about his overwhelming feelings of loneliness and his upcoming divorce and invited me to spend Christmas with him because he was alone and heartbroken. As a response, I told him I'd gladly spend Christmas with him if he gave me back my college fund as a Christmas gift. He and the others didn't like my response. He thought that it was harsh, and my relatives said that I was a judgmental, petty, greedy idiot to say this to him after he's lost so much. They said he did all he could to save his stepson's, my stepbrother's life, which they described as noble, and that he doesn't owe me a thing. So I went home after a big argument with my uncle, who came at me for what I said. Now I feel like crap. Maybe I should have just calmly and politely declined the invite and not said this to him and made him feel guilty for how he handled my stepbrother's situation. Edit. The fund was made by my dad. My mom was a stay-at-home mom and didn't work, but they both agreed that this fund would go toward my education. Whose fund was it then? LMAO, I really don't get this. Maybe you can expand on how exactly the fund wasn't mine and whom it belonged to. I was able to get into college. I started working to pay my way and had some relatives help. But my uncle did so much for me, which is why I said I felt like crap when he scolded me. He holds a special place in my life, and he's the last person I want to disappoint or let down. As a matter of fact, I want little to nothing to do with him, but all this time I've been playing nice to please my uncle and relatives. But that's it. You are the idiot. If they used your stepbrother's college fund to try and save your life, would you feel differently? Dad used the college fund to try to save someone's life. That's not an idiot move. It's a desperate father move. Dad prioritized issues, not children, and he was the one that set up the fund. He didn't use any inheritance left by his first wife. It's not the OP's money. It's his dad money to do with as he pleases. OP, do you really think his dad should let a bunch of money sit there while someone needed medical help? That's greedy. The money was put into savings while Mom was still alive. She was a stay-at-home mom, which means everything put into that account before her death was just as much her money as it was his. OP was owed that money. The reason why it was spent is irrelevant, regardless. I think the program is that your dad didn't prioritize you until he was lonely and now he wants your company. The college fund is a symptom, and it's not fair for Dad to brush it under the rug. I'd bet a virtual beverage OP gets pushed aside again when Dad finds a new partner. What? Like, what? Yeah, I could try and save your life, but sorry, this money's for OP to go to school with. You can die now. Using up savings and funds to pay for cancer or surgery or whatever will label you an idiot because according to some stupid rule, college savings and literally everything else in life somehow matters more than saving a human being's life? But that's not the problem. The medical things got done. They would have gotten done whether the money came from loans, mortgages, insurance, or other relatives, or selling off things or whatever. The problem is where the money came from to pay the medical bills when the medical bills came in. There are many options, including the stepson's father's obligations, the stepmother's obligations, and OP's father's contribution. But instead of going to those other three people to pay these bills, they took OP's dedicated education fund, which his deceased mother helped set up for him to plan for his future. So OP's father took money meant for OP's future to pay bills instead of working out a payment plan with the hospital or letting the father of the stepson do that. 3 adults who could have been responsible for paying these bills, and they took OP's money instead. That's what's wrong here. Making one child responsible instead of 3 adults taking their responsibilities, and then using the guilt of death to make OP compliant. Despicable. I, female 28, have a younger sister, Jody, female 23. So Jody is a single mom. She has a daughter, young child. I frequently help her out by picking up my niece from school and babysitting for a few hours for free so that Jody can work. Jody lives with our parents and her boyfriend, 26, who she's been seeing for a couple of months. In early October, at one point, Jody accused me of using the family's computer in our parents' home to go on gambling websites and signing up with our mom's debit card while I was babysitting. I told Jody that wasn't true and asked her why on earth she would think that. Jody explained that money was disappearing from our mom's bank account and that she checked the computer's browser history and that gambling websites came up. To be honest, I was kind of offended that Jody would think I'd do something like that. I've never had a gambling problem, and I've never stolen from anyone. I told Jody that that was awful, but that it wasn't me that did it. She didn't believe me and went and told a load of our extended family that I was apparently stealing our mom's money to go on gambling websites. And now they all think I'm a horrible person, and many of them have blocked me on Facebook. Anyway, the next week, Jody got back in touch with me. She said that she found a gambling website on her boyfriend's phone and connected the dots, and he admitted that he was stealing our mom's money and going on gambling websites. However, Jody refused to apologize for jumping to conclusions and ruining my reputation with our extended family. Sure, I never speak to them anyway, but it's still a terrible reputation to have, especially when it's undeserved. Jody said that it's my fault because I acted guilty and said I got too defensive when she accused me. Later in October was Jody's birthday, and she had a big party with our extended family. I decided to give Jody her gifts a couple of days before, but refused to go to the party. I didn't want to go because I didn't want to deal with all the questions and judgment, and I was still furious at Jody for not even apologizing for what she did. My parents are understanding, but Jody said I was an idiot for not attending her party, and that if I was going to be that way, then I shouldn't bother being a part of the family, and accused me of being petty. Not the idiot. Although giving her presents and not demanding that she set the record straight or that your parents do, you're doing yourself a disservice. She takes you for granted, is unapologetic, and doesn't have to face any consequences for her actions from anyone. Is she the golden child in your family? If Jody and her boyfriend are still together and part of the family, then everyone but you is an idiot. They are still together, but her boyfriend is now in therapy and attending gambling addiction support groups. I would divorce my husband without hesitation if he stole from my parents like that, but I suppose it's a step in the right direction. She's still with this loser? Well, that's why she won't clear your name. People would naturally ask, well, who the thief was, and she doesn't want to have to admit that it was her current boyfriend. So why would you buy her gifts? Why didn't your parents kick him out? Jody, oh Jody, can I please continue to be your free babysitter, punching bag, and provider of gifts while you crap all over me? Throw a backbone, OP. Jeez. Yeah, OP is an idiot to herself. Pretty clearly, it will be a cold day in the bad place, and OP would be standing outside the house, afraid to open the door. OP, you have to be the person who saves yourself. We can't do it for you. Quit rolling over and taking it, OP. Demand to tell everyone that she was wrong to accuse you. She was stupid for jumping to conclusions, and she's sorry for dragging your name through the mud. And stop giving her presents until she womans up and eats her crow. Jeez. Before we separated, my husband always let our kids buy me random gifts whenever he took them shopping without me. He recently took our daughter out, and when they came back, she had gifts for me. It was obvious she hadn't picked the gifts, so I explained that she had to return them to her dad. She's only a toddler, so she really didn't understand and started crying because she thought I didn't like her gifts. Of course, it didn't help that my husband insisted that I keep them and that I was being ridiculous. We ended up having a fight away from the kids because he felt like I was hurting our daughter on purpose. Am I the idiot? You are the idiot. She's a toddler. She gave her mommy something. She doesn't know the difference between giving you something she picked versus what he picked. Just that she gave you a present and you were clearly not happy about it, and then you told her to give it back. To her, that's devastating. You're the most important person in her life. Unfortunately, you didn't consider her emotions and hurt her. If you felt that way about the gift, you should have returned it, mailed it, or left it on his doorstep. There are many options before you tell a toddler that you don't want something she gave you and make her feel bad. Do better. Was the toddler supposed to Uber to the store and swipe her Capital One card so she could purchase your gifts? Or does she have her own Prime account? It was more convenient if Dad helped, especially since she probably needed someone to help her see above the counter. I get where you're coming from. It's something he used to do when you were together. He doesn't get to do that anymore because you're not together. I understand that, but how hard is it to thank your kid and have a private conversation with your ex afterward about it? If a toddler hands you a rock, you say thank you. You don't tell them you're not going to keep the rock or it's not the right rock. You just say thanks for the rock. Truth. Around that age, I picked some flowers from our front yard and excitedly presented them to my mom. She said, "Ugh, those are weeds," and threw them away. Obviously, I cried. I'm 47 years old, and I will remember that moment for the rest of my life. Recently, a children's hospital in our city held a fundraising dinner and auction to raise money to upgrade their cancer wing. My wife works as an administrator for the hospital group that owns the children's hospital, but doesn't work for the children's hospital. She told me that their CEO expected all of the administrators to go to mingle with the doctors and asked if I wanted to come. I wanted to, but I declined because I had a dinner meeting the same night. That night came and we went to our separate functions. I got home first and went straight to bed because I was tired from my full day. The next day when we woke up, everything was normal as we talked about our night. Somewhere in the middle of our conversation, my wife told me that we donated $5,000 to the children's hospital. I was stunned. I asked her to repeat it to ensure I heard her correctly. I didn't remember us talking about any donations, much less a $5,000 donation. Honestly, I didn't know what to say. I told my wife, while it looks like we can afford the donation right now, our financials took a big hit with this economy and looks to be taking a bigger hit next year. The company I work for have been holding high-level meetings about our clients not renewing contracts because they're anticipating their own slowdown. There's a slim but real chance I might lose my job the next year if the economy and our business doesn't pick up. This is not the time to be giving away $5,000. She argued that she had already made the donation, so there was nothing we could do about it. I went to check our account and saw that it hadn't been withdrawn, so I went back, opened another bank account, and then transferred my portion into the account, leaving only her money. I transferred my direct deposits into the new account, leaving our joint account with only her money and direct deposit. She doesn't have much more than $5,000, so once the children's hospital donation hits that account, she won't have enough money left to buy a cup of coffee. I told her what I did and that she donated without talking to me about it, so it's coming out of her money, not mine. She said I couldn't do that because both of our names are on the donation brick. They put the donor's name on a brick and then use those bricks to build part of the new wing, and she can't back out of it without looking foolish to the rest of the executive team. I told her she should have thought of that before giving away money without talking to me first. She argued it's for a good cause, to which I argued making sure we're not homeless next year is a better cause. I'm standing my ground, but she's gotten her family involved. Her father called me to have a man-to-man talk about me being a better man by supporting my wife and helping children. They're making me out to be some kind of monster because we can't afford it right now. Am I a monster? Not the idiot. Let me guess. Your wife had cocktails, and now her evening of generosity is everyone else's responsibility but hers. Her mouth wrote a check that she couldn't cash. Big spending, no matter what or how well-intentioned, must be discussed with your partner if you share finances. Tell her father this was her donation. No one is stopping him from chipping in to help her. $5,000 is a lot of money for most people, and I would be understandably upset. It probably wasn't an insignificant chunk of their savings either. Because OP said he moved his share out of their joint account, let's assume that's about half of all the money in there. And according to OP, after the donation gets taken out of the account, she wouldn't have enough left to buy a cup of coffee. So there's barely over $5,000 left in there now. In other words, they only had about $10,000 in the bank to begin with. And while they're doing better than a lot of people, that is most certainly not we can spend $5,000 on a donation kind of money. U.S. healthcare providers, including hospitals, are for-profit businesses, and it's all kinds of wrong that they ask for additional donations when they have CEOs and other execs on high salaries. Point this out to your wife and ask her to reevaluate her priorities. It is not okay for her to make such a grand financial gesture, which is what it is, with your joint money without your explicit consent. If she still wishes to go ahead with this donation, she can fund it and make it only in her name. My daughter is nearly an adult. I'm 47 and my wife is 44. My daughter had been having problems with her anxiety and depression. School has been very hard for her, and she asked us if she could get an animal for emotional support. I asked her why we couldn't just put her in regular therapy again, but she said she didn't like her last therapist. Basically, she doesn't want to try it again. I was pretty against bringing an animal into the home, as my daughter can barely keep her room clean and remember to wash her dishes, much less take care of an animal. And I refused to do anything for the dog because I worked long hours and didn't want to be picking up messes when I got home. My wife said I was unfair and that this could be what my daughter needed to get back into good spirits. So we got her a dog. We let her pick out from a few select breeds, since certain breeds tend to need higher requirements for care, such as frequent grooming or other traits, and I was against getting some breeds just because of personal preference. The dog was great at first, and it got along with my daughter and my wife greatly. Me, not so much, but it could probably sense that I didn't like it either. But then it started getting out of its leash on walks, tearing up the couch and various other toys we bought it. Finally, my daughter started forgetting to let it out, so I'd be coming home to find poop and pee all over the brand new carpet. I warned her twice that if she didn't take responsibility, the dog would be returning, and she gave me excuses, saying she was feeling depressed again. Finally, she said she would do better, but didn't. Ultimately, I got fed up, so one day when she went to school, I loaded the dog in my truck and told the shelter that he wasn't a good fit for us. Obviously, when she came home, she was upset. She was saying the dog was her best friend, but I told her that she wasn't taking very good care of him, and he didn't deserve that. My wife says it was very harsh to just take the dog back while she was gone, but she agrees our daughter wasn't responsible. My daughter's been saying I brought back her severe depression, and we haven't talked. Am I the idiot? It might be a hot take, but not the idiot. The animal doesn't deserve that. On the other hand, you can't ignore what your daughter is and has been going through. Please try therapy again, but look for a better therapist who can relate to her, as not every therapist is good, and many are way too old to deal with the younger generation's problems. Maybe after therapy and improvement with her depression, you guys can look into getting another doggo. Still, depression isn't something that gets better magically, by force or by a new pet, so this is not a solution. Everyone's the idiot here. An animal is a living being. If you knew the animal wouldn't get proper care and still chose to adopt it, you're an idiot. You knew your daughter wouldn't take care of it and you decided to neglect the dog in retaliation instead of taking responsibility for your decisions. The same thing you're getting on your daughter for. Why would you get a dog in the first place if you knew nobody would take care of it? That's borderline abuse. The only thing I can give you credit for is returning the dog, so hopefully someone with basic empathy can give it a good home.